voice17104.com. This is Zanetta Wingfield, and you're listening to the voice17104.com. The voice17104.com. Welcome to Did You Know? Podcast, your host, Richard Utley, dedicated to the African American viewers. The program is aimed to celebrate African American culture and deal with the real and relevant topics that impact the everyday lives of the African American community through frank and insightful dialogue with local and national influencers. Every day, there is another horrible, discouraging news story, directly or indirectly impacting African Americans. But we need to look at the shining stars in the galaxy of Black America. It is time to tell our story.
Good evening, and welcome to another Did You Know? Well, welcome. It's kind of springy out there, right? I guess, I don't know if winter's over. I'm hoping it is, but it's a nice springy day, so we're going to start doing a lot of springy things. How's that? First thing I want to bring up is I'm going to continue to bring up, don't forget, those of you who are running for office, let the community know that you're running for office. Don't assume that they're going to vote for you. And you need to tell them what you stand for. Don't assume because you're running, or assume because you may have an issue here and an issue there. You need to go out and get to know the community and find out what they think our community needs. Because I keep saying this all the time, we got to look out for ourselves. You know, as the subject of history comes up, and especially history for us, you know, I've always told you that I thought that we have to tell our young people some positive stories. And if they hear some positive stories, I really believe that they would be positive. I was looking at something the other day, and it said Black children remain inspired. And inspired children is less likely to steal, kill, and destroy. And inspire is more likely to embrace the ideas and example of Black empowerment from the Black history. So if a student doesn't see himself in history books or on TV, then how is he going to think of himself or herself? As well as we always see a lot of things on TV, and unfortunately it's not always positive about us. So I think I'm going to start probably at my next program. I'm probably going to give a couple history statements so that we can start the dialogue of giving our young people a history lesson. Not to say that we don't need a history lesson, because we always hear about it after the fact. And then after we hear about it after the fact, then it's too late. So I think that we're going to have to start telling our young people the history about them. Let them know that we had some great scholars. We had some great leaders. We had some great inventors. And I think that's important because there's so much negativity out there pertaining to us. So it's your job and it's my job to do a better job in history. And especially with this whole woke thing, and nobody wants to deal with the real history. So it's going to be our job to tell the history. So I'm going to start history, starting on my next program. I'm going to bring up a couple history facts so that we can start to build on that. But I think you should do that as well. And there's no excuse. There's no excuse for you not to give history, no matter what it is. Good, bad, and indifferent. And I think once our young people understand our legacy and what we've gone through, what we've been through, they'll find out that we've been great survivors. I really do. You know that you had the NCAA basketball on, you had 68 teams on, and you know you saw a lot of African American or people of color on those teams. But you know, we see them on TV and we saw them in the tournament. But I want to ask yourself something. How many of them do you think graduate from college? Not a whole lot, about 40% grad. Let's have half graduate. So all those people you saw running up down the court, believe me, half of them is not going to graduate from college. But the reason I'm bringing this up is I think it's very important that we got to do a better service with all young people, especially kids that are athletes, that we tell them that they are good. Because what happens is they hook their wagon thinking they're going to go play professional. And a lot of them will not play professional, whether it's football, basketball, whatever. And what happens is they don't know how to read and write. They don't know how to read and write. So we're going to have to start preparing them. And all these coaches out there, they got all these athletes, and you don't ask them about their grades, shame on you. If you don't encourage them to develop study habits, shame on you. That's your job. That's your responsibility to mature, to help develop young people's minds. And I'm going to keep bringing that up because I see so many kids who tell me they're going to be this, they're going to be that, and they may be great athletes, but they can't read and they can't write. All they care about is sports. And sometimes the parents, all you care about is the sports. But you're doing a disservice to those young people. Because after sports, what do they have? So now you got this big basketball, or you got this football, and you're thinking about it and you're throwing it. But what happens when the air is let out? Think about it. Something else I want to bring up, and I just want to put this in your mind because we talk about, did you know? I just want to put it in a perspective for you. In 1931, the Scottsboro boys were arrested and accused of raping 2 women. Later on, one of the women recanted it. She said that it did not happen, it did not occur. But unfortunately, an all-white Alabama jury found the group guilty and sentenced them to death. Thank God that they did not die in the death penalty. But my point is this here. My point is that continues to grow and grow and grow. And that's why it's very important that we have to keep our eye on the criminal justice system and hold it accountable. And I want to bring a parallel that Central Park 5 in 1989. A group of blacks and Latino teenage boys were wrongly convicted of rape in Central Park. And they were convicted. But you know the ironical part about that is, but probably what's the most disturbing part about that is, about the Central Park 5, we had adults out there that had already said they were guilty. People like Trump, who called the teenagers they should face the death penalty before even being convicted. Trump took out a full-page advertisement in 4 New York City newspapers calling for the 5 teens to be executed. And guess what? They didn't do it. Aren't we so glad that those young men were not dying over something that they didn't do? And yet, Donald Trump did not apologize for it. But people ran to judgment. Now, you probably want to know why I'm bringing this up. I'm bringing this up because all that's going on now, all these people that are marching and protesting and saying the criminal justice system is not fair. And I tell people it's not fair when it affects you. We have always known it wasn't fair. We've always known it wasn't just. So why don't we let this criminal justice process with Donald Trump play out? Just let it play out. Let it can be found guilty or it can be found not guilty. But we got all these great politicians, congressmen, senators coming to bat. It's unfair. It's unfair. It's unfair. I want you, audience, to think about one person, a relative or a friend, that you know that the criminal justice system was not fair or didn't go your way. Or we know from history now how they got convictions from us. We know how plea bargain is not always our best friend. We now know if you don't really have no money, you don't always get the best legal defense. We now know that. We now know that they keep you up all night and don't give you any food and don't do this and don't do that. And you say, you know what, it might be easier to plead guilty. And if I plead guilty, then we can move on. So I want you to think about that tonight. I think it's very important. I think it's important because we forget what we've gone through. And those of you out there, I want you to think about what other people have gone through. So when you think about the criminal justice system and you think about what's going on, then you have to kind of look at what's happening in America. So we're going to have a number of topics today to talk about. And one of them we're going to talk about is that I'm going to have Chris Thomas come on for a few minutes to talk about something. Chris, if there's this big thing about communications and we don't defy our own narratives, we don't tell our own stories.
Sure.
And don't you think at this point in time, it's very important that we do develop and find our own narratives?
Sure, Richard, again, thank you again for allowing me just a few minutes to join you on the podcast today. I hear you say all the time on many different podcasts, if we don't tell our narrative, someone else will take the initiative to do so. And actually, other people have taken the initiative to do so. And I think that's a big part of the problem that we see in his story. It's not our story, it's their story. So I think it's paramount, especially, we have a whole generation that's at stake, that if they don't know where they come from, they won't be able to identify where they're heading. So I think it's very, very paramount that we begin to tell our own narratives. I agree 100%, sir.
But I also think it's important that we support people like you, support your station, support all the things you're doing. You're doing some new things now. So I'd like for you to tell my audience some of the wonderful things that you're doing now.
Again, thank you, Mr. Utley. Again, you've been very instrumental in the longevity of many different aspects of our vision here at thevoice17104.com. Again, we've been helping people to host podcasts like a turnkey operation as far as podcasting since 2014. But in the beginning of 2023, we went into a new direction, thinking about the longevity of being able to tell our story, but also to control the platforms in which our story is disseminated to the world upon as well. So as of 2023, as you well know, and actually I'm gonna actually put a screen share up here if I have that page open, and I do. A quick screen share. As of 2023, January 2023, we have been led to create the voicetv.org. Again, voicetv.org. And what the voicetv.org is, it gives us a platform to disseminate our narratives across the World Wide Web. So if we ever get pushed off of any social media platforms or all social media platforms, we still have a way to get our content, not just locally, but to the nations abroad as well. And actually, you actually were one of the first people, you and Dr. Gadsden, I'm sure you're very familiar with him. You guys have been friends for some years, have your own networks on our network. So what does that mean, and what does that look like? I encourage our listeners and viewers, Mr. Utley, to go to voicetv.org. Again, not thevoicetv.org. It's just voicetv.org. And there are 21 customer created channels, just like Oprah has a channel, just like NBC, ABC, BET, MTV1, MTV2, the Food Network. Those are all channels and networks. And now you own your own network, where everything concerning the Did You Know podcast and even some of your other business ventures, 24/7, 365, can be watched and viewed on your TV network. Again, check it out for yourself. Again, it's simple, it's easy. voicetv.org. There's a program guide that holds all, just like your regular program guide when you have your little remote at home, whether that be the Fire Stick or Comcast or Xfinity. You have all your different channels, and you select the channel that you want to watch, and you can leave it locked there all day, all night, even on the weekends, even when you're not here. Something concerning Did You Know is on the Did You Know channel that is hosted by Richard Utley.
But you have some other kinds of, not only Did I Know, I understand you have a comedy.
Yes, sir.
You have some others. Could you explain to them how you stepped this up, and maybe you might want to show them one of your channels if you like?
Sure. Actually, if we had our opportunity to recreate TV, what would that look like? I get very frustrated. I don't get much time to spend time watching TV, but when I do, the frustration of it all comes, Mr. Utley, and it takes more time to find a good channel than it does to watch the movie or the presentations that you selected. It takes longer to find something good, something that's wholesome, especially when you have younger people and sensitive ears that are very impressionable. It takes longer to find something wholesome, something that is, something that doesn't have a lot of, sexual content, a lot of colorful metaphors, for lack of a better word. It's harder to find something. So what would TV look like if we could redefine TV? And that's exactly what Voice TV is attempting to do, is to recreate television with our own narrative. So we do have a clean comedy channel that you can watch 24/7, 365. Myself and some people that are on our network, we're very avid about, street ministry evangelism. There's an evangelistic channel. It houses all the evangelism videos from Facebook Live to YouTube, to be able to present all that content in one channel in a 24-hour, 365 fashion. Dr. Gaston, he actually has two channels on that network as well. He has the Writer's Workshop channel. For those listeners and viewers that don't know, Nathaniel Writer's Workshop's been going on 20, 30 years or so in the city of Harrisburg, but now since January of 2023, the Writer's Workshop has a channel on Voice TV, where you can tune into the Writer's Workshop channel or the Life Esteem channel, which is another one of his brands for him and his lovely wife, Patricia Gadsden. And you can find out everything that concerns Life Esteem, the workshops that they've done on video, all the TV shows that they've been doing on the local TV station here, all the programs that they've ever done, whether on YouTube or Facebook. Now create a channel where people can find out about Dr. Gaston, about the Writer's Workshop, about our comedy channel, about Did You Know with Mr. Richard Utley, and a host of other clients as well.
Is there a way that you can show my audience one of your channels so they can see how we've come a long way and how you've come a long way?
Sure. Again, this for less than $3 a day, Mr. Utley. I mean, this puts it right within all of our reach. You can host your own channel, your own network. I'm not talking about just a podcast. Podcasting is just for a moment. You podcast, in half hour, you podcast an hour, and now that video goes into a social media graveyard where few people go to dig it up to enjoy the wealth of time that you invested to produce, the content that you produced. And now all the content you've ever produced, if you show us where it's at, we could take that content and put it in a linear fashion where we could deliver, a certain program at a certain time of day, every day during the week, just like your regular TV channel. You tune in at 6 o'clock, the news is on. You tune tune in at a certain time, 12 o'clock, the news is on. You can do that with your own channel. We handle all the technical aspects of doing that. All you got to do is you got to have a logo, or if you don't have a logo, we could just use your name. But if you want to brand it with your own ministry, with your own business logo, we can use that logo on your created channel that we'll create for you. You show us where the content is on social media, whether that be on Vimeo, whether that be on YouTube, whether that be on Facebook Live. No matter where that content is, you show us where it's at, we dig it up, and then we create a linear TV channel that has a program guide that tells you what's coming on at 5 o'clock, what's coming on at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, around the clock, 24 hours a day, 365. So again, I'm going to do another quick screen share. Praise. Shout out to my mom, as you see on my Google search engine there. So again, you just type in your web browser, voicetv.org, and you'll see this wonderful web page come up that houses all of our TV channels. First, you'll see the flyer, as you see on the screen here, with Dr. Roger Dixon. He also has a channel that deals with prison family ministries, programs that concern ministries. I mean, with your channel, the sky's the limit. You could put people that inspire you, that you think will be inspirational to other individuals. You can put all that content on your channel, no matter where it's found. If it's on the internet and you can show us where it's at, we can add it to your channel where you can entertain audience and engage audiences with your own TV channel that you have created by your own imagination and by your own hands with your own branding as well. So again, you type in voicetv.org, you'll see the flyer at the top of that page. You scroll down just a little bit and you'll see the TV player begin to populate and pop up here. Perfectly to work well using Zoom as well here. Okay, so the first channel that you see on our network, it's called Voice Community. On the Voice TV Voice Community channel, Mr. Utley, is just a taste or a sample of all of our broadcasters, all the podcasts we've ever hosted since 2014. You can tune in and see old-time favorites, people that you've forgotten that are in the city. And you can enlarge all this. I don't want to enlarge it and get it all busy because I don't want my computer to crash. Right. But all of our podcasters, all the content they ever created, a smorgasbord of that is on the Voice Community channel. Now, if you go down here to the program guide, you'll see another one of our favorite broadcasters, Reverend Barb Ellerby. She has a channel called El Rohi's Child, Reverend Barb. On her channel, she's actually done something very unique, Mr. Utley. She's actually created a tribute to her mother that went from labor to reward some months ago. But she has a playlist of her mother's favorite songs and video that we feature every Thursday from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. She sends me the playlist of what songs she wants played back to back. And it's just a tribute to her mother. And she's had great comments and people buying into it, watching it, being encouraged by the songs that used to encourage and inspire her very own mother as well. As you see, the Reverend Roger Dixon channel, the Did You Know channel. So if you click on these channels, if you click on it now, on your channel right now, the Black Journal is playing, which talks about African Americans in the different various wars. You'd probably know a little bit more about them than I do. But you can tune into these channels, you can be educated, you can be informed, you can be enlightened, and it tells you what's coming on next. If you look at the TV guide, this current program that's airing right now airs the 7:15, and then at 7:15 you have a Did You Know podcast that comes on when you have political analyst Tony Ross on there. You can go all the way later on tonight, so say if you're busy now, but you want to check it out a little bit later. So what's coming on 8, 9 o'clock? 400 Years, a case for deliberate destruction of the Black community. So you can find out, there's so much information that you could check out on voicetv.org. And again, one of the benefits is you can watch it at your leisure. You can watch it on your iPad, your iPhone. Again, you can watch it on your desktop. You can watch it on your laptop. These channels are available 24/7, 365, and anyone, not just, Oprah Winfrey and these big hitters that are, multimedia moguls. You can host your own channel and pretty much do the same thing as well, recreating TV using your imagination.
How can they get in contact with you? Because there's people out there that have messages. They just need a platform to take that message.
Sure. Well, you can knock on the door. But I would call, make sure I'm here, make sure it's not one of my days off, and make sure we're not on the air, with a current client as well. But the email's the easiest way is by cell phone. You can reach out to me direct, 717-903-0497. Again, you can send us an email at thevoice17104@gmail.com. You can send us an email on Facebook, on social media. Go to our social media fan page. Again, we're not new to this. We're true to this. We've been in this business over a decade now, Mr. Utley. Over 8 years for ourselves and over 5 or 6 years doing it for other people as well. So you can reach us by email and the voice. 17104@gmail.com. You can knock on our door. We're conveniently located uptown Harrisburg. A big shout out to Wesley Union AME Zion Church and Dr. David T. Miller, again, for allowing us to reposition, our ministry platform here, at the Wesley Church at 5th and Camp Street. So those are the most easy ways to reach out to us and get a hold of us, Rich.
Because see, I'm convinced that we have to control the narrative that pertains to us.
Yes, sir.
And we better understand that, whether it's no matter what it is. And the reason why I say that is because now they're talking about woke and don't talk about history.
Sure.
Well, then how they going to find out about history if nobody doesn't talk about it?
Yes, sir.
So how they going to know about it? I mean, regardless, even if you talk about some other things, they're very important.
Sure.
So I would say to people the importance is that having a platform to be able to say some things and to be able to draw that narrative is very important. And the reason I think it's so important of what you said about your whole platform, that's why we have to have people out there that are writers. We have to have people out there that's in communications, because we got to have those people who look like us.
Yes, sir.
To define us. Because if we let everybody else define us, we're in trouble.
Oh my, sir.
And before I bring my next guest on, I'll just put this in perspective. It's like telling jokes. Some jokes in the community, some people laugh at, some won't. But sometimes the ethnic joke, it depends on how it's written.
Yes, sir.
And that's why it's very important when you have black shows on TV, that they need black writers, because black writers will understand my laughter or understand what I mean, or they'll even understand what's sensitive.
Yes, sir.
Not just on TV, but now we're finding all these different commercials, and companies are turning around saying that they're sorry because there was no sensitivity to what maybe that ad or how somebody projected it.
Yes, sir.
I mean, whether we talk about, we could talk about the Washington Redskins and now they're the Commanders, and how the red man felt or how he was perceived.
Sure.
And I have to say, growing up, how the Indian was perceived, the red man was perceived, is totally not really right and fair.
Wow.
So with that, what I'm going to do...
Can I share just one more thing
Sure,
before you let me go?
Yeah.
Again, this is an SOS call out to content creators, social media influencers, pastors, ministries, entrepreneurs. It's time for us to control not just our ability to create content, but to control the ability how we're going to distribute that content. The reason we created this, Rich, if I had a dime every time Facebook said they were going to shut down my business page, The Voice 17104, they say I'm spamming the community with my own content, which is just ridiculous when there are real bad guys out there on social media. If I had a dime every time they said they were going to, I violated community standards for just being a truth teller, instead of waiting till that day happens when they could just turn off your channel, turn off your personal page. I've seen it happen to individuals on countless different occasions where social media will just shut down a fan page or shut down a page that it took you years to create a following and to create a momentum. Now you can control not just your ability to create content, but to control and own your own content distribution platform where you can recreate TV. And again, what would that look like? Again, the ball is in your court. Again, the ball's in my court. Again, we need need the support of our community. We need the support, again, of social media influencers and content creators to keep this platform going, because if they kick us off of Facebook, if they kick us off of YouTube, if they kick us off of Instagram, how are we going to get our narrative to the nation and to the masses? Now there's an answer, voicetv.org. Thank you, Richard, for this opportunity to share, sir.
And I will continue to do this because it's very important. Excuse me. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a guest on. But before I bring my guest on, I'm going to let this video define who he is.
I mean, I wanted to be a writer my whole life. I would always read. I would just read a lot. And that passion grew into, okay, so how can I do what these authors are doing? For me, I'm from Pittsburgh. Pitt has always been a prominent institution, one that was always respected within the community, in Pittsburgh and beyond. I went to Kappa High School, the Pittsburgh Creative and Performing Arts High School for Literary Arts. My teacher told me, if you want to just write for a living every day and that's what you do for a job, look into journalism, look into writing for a newspaper, and that's what I did. And then when I came to Pitt, everything was magnified. I was a reporter for the Pitt News. I worked for the Original magazine, also had an internship at Pitt Magazine. I worked for Genesis magazine. I was able to meet people who read great books and could recommend other books to me, and it was just like, you know, a fantastic experience. I'm a partner at Kennedy Blue Communications, a public relations firm focused on youth organizations. One of the things that people told me as a reporter was they didn't see certain things in the paper that interest them. And one way to solve that is through PR. What we do is we have various clients and we help them get the press coverage they deserve. It's so satisfying for me and for our clients when they can see their work in a newspaper or in a news broadcast. You know what, in the future, I can see myself becoming a published author. I can see myself still being an entrepreneur and being a professor. I think, you know, just nurturing intelligent minds is something that I can see myself doing. And I think Pitt has prepared me for all three of those: entrepreneurship, writing, and, you know, professorship. Those are all in my future.
Well, I'm fortunate. I have that young man to my right. And I'm going to start off by letting him tell you who he is and what gave him the passion of what he wanted to do.
Mr. Utley, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be here. Yeah, I know the people may not know, but me and you, we go way back.
True.
There was the Intercultural House at the University of Pittsburgh, and I had lived at the house while I was at Pitt, and Mr. Utley, you also had lived at the house when you were at Pitt. And so you and I had actually met before I moved to Harrisburg. We met, I think it was maybe 2006 or 2007. I'm not sure in the year, but we had met. But happy to be here. And what gives me that strength is, I will have to say, God. You know, God gives me that strength. God gave me a gift to write. God gave me a gift to be a storyteller and to take facts and information and really craft it in a way that is engaging to individuals and engaging to the people who I serve, whether that's through journalism, public relations, or, which is my passion and my love, creative writing. And so I give it all to God.
What made you, what made you decide, or what made you think that you could be a writer?
It goes back to reading. When I was younger, my grandmother would always take me to the library, the East Liberty Library, and we would walk there from her house and picked up a book. I was like, oh, okay, I can read it. Picked up a book, read it, and then I remember watching the television news broadcast, and there was a journalist, and I remember saying, I wonder how they get on TV. How does that happen? And my uncle said, well, you have to go to school. And I just, logged that in the back of my mind. And when it came time for me to go to high school, by the time I was in middle school, I had already been like the editor of the student newspaper. This is middle school. And my mother encouraged me to apply to the Pittsburgh High School for Creative and Performing Arts. Now, at that time, I was playing the alto saxophone and I was really involved with writing. And my mother said, "Hey, Jamar, I really think you should, consider continuing with writing and consider learning more about literature." And so I applied for Kappa High School, and then eventually, that took my writing into a more serious level, and I just kept with it.
What would you say to my audience out there to encourage people to take the kind of direction that the path that you're going?
I would just say take it one day at a time. Take it one day at a time, but be consistent. One of the things that I'm learning at this stage in my life is that art is a discipline. Creative writing is a discipline. Yes, I'm a literary artist, but there's a discipline. And so when I read about what writers who are fantastic, writers that are some of our greats. Toni Morrison will wake up, I think, at like 4, 5 in the morning consistently while raising a family, while working a full-time job, and write every single day. And really, developing that discipline and that craft, and also looking at what's out there in the space. So if you want to be a writer, read as much as you can. Just don't read one type of fiction, one type of creative nonfiction. Read newspapers, read that, and read this, read that. And one of the other things I will really want to stress is just write. And sometimes I write so much stuff, I'm not even publishing it. Sometimes it's just writing, getting in the habit of writing. And if you have writer's block, which is a real thing, take a step away, because there's such thing as pre-writing. Sometimes it might be a day you want to brainstorm. Sometimes it might be a rest day. Don't forget to rest. God even tells us to rest. So don't forget to rest. But when you're developing in this craft, watch YouTube, watch interviews, ask people, and just continue to do it and learn as much as you can about the industry, and also as much as you can about the craft.
That's why I have this podcast called Did You Know? To show the audience that there's people like you, look like us, can do that. One of the real issues is, and I've been a believer of this, if we see it and we look at it and we understand it, then we can kind of figure it out.
Absolutely.
But if we're never exposed to it, then it's kind of hard. So my thing is to bring people on like you, that somebody can say, you know what, he's a writer. That's what I want to be. But if they don't see you, it doesn't click. They see basketball players, football players, and baseball players, but they don't see the people like you chasing that dream. Not only chasing that dream, but it can pay you too. You can make money.
You can absolutely make money. And yeah, it's a great thing.
So let me ask you this here question. You encourage young people to read. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
And so you're saying out there, young people, you need to read. There's no excuse not to read, whether you can read off your phone or whether you read whatever, but they need to get in the habit of reading. And why you say that?
Well, one, it's a common phrase, but reading is fundamental. And then also, as a believer, the word of God is, you have to stay in the word. And actually, I want to bring up that point today because I listened to a fantastic webinar hosted by the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission and, Mr. Chad Lassiter and Dr. Palmer. And he had said, and Toni Morrison had said this too in her documentary, that Black people were literally resigned just to read the Bible. And so that's and a lot of times that's how they learn to read during that time. But reading is fundamental. Now, when I was growing up, there were a lot of incentives to read. I don't know if Pizza Hut still has it, but they had, I believe, the Book It program. And so you read so many, you get a free pizza. And if anybody knows me, pizza's my favorite food. And so I would read my stuff, and then they had the Scholastic book orders, and I thought it was so fun getting the little sheet from school and looking at the descriptions of the books and doing that. And one of the apps that I would recommend that everyone gets, and you do have to pay for it, but is Scribd, Scribd. Scribd is probably the largest collection of online books. So I would go to Scribd. Also, me as a writer and an editor, I pay for the dictionary app, the American Heritage Dictionary app. And I would also encourage people just to get a news app. So for me, I really like the Washington Post. So I do pay, I am a subscriber to the Washington Post. But even if you don't want to pay for any of that, get a library card. Everyone needs a library card. There's certain things, if you can, but get a library card. And if you don't have a library card, just go to the library, get a book, sit down and just read. And even if you don't read a whole book, read a few pages and, put that book down, get another book, because now you're getting a diversity of thought. And also, people today, we like to argue and we like to get on our side, learn as much as you can about as much as you can, whether you agree with it or not. Because when you're having discussions, it's always great to be an informed communicator. So you don't necessarily have to agree with this issue, but because you read about it and because you researched it, you know about this issue to speak about it intelligently.
So what you're saying is that we need to encourage young people to read, as well as we need to encourage ourselves to read.
Absolutely.
But reading is very important. And would you say this? Sometimes reading can take you on adventures that you may have never have the opportunity to go in real life. But if you read it, it can take you there.
A lot of times I feel like I was in Gulliver's Travels. I mean, I would be in East Liberty, limited, access to the TV, and I'll get my book and I'll just go. And one book that I read really changed my life, and that was A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. That book changed my life because that was the first book that I read that was challenging. Because up until that time, I was reading like Goosebumps and, it was still great, but that was like the first book that really, as you said, like took me on a ride. And then from there, just read more books and just, books would seem intimidating, but don't let it intimidate you. Read the next word. And also, if a book's not clicking for you and if it's boring, put it down. You don't have to force yourself to read anything you don't. That's the freedom that we have. And I have to give a shout out to my friend Chan Williams. He had told me years ago when I was reading to my daughter, he's like, hey, when you read to your daughter, read a few pages and then ask her, what did we just talk about? Because even if you're reading, you want to make sure the reading comprehension is there. So if you don't know words, take a break, look it up. And a tip I want to tell everyone, and I use this to this day, and my friend Holden Slattery, we worked in the Cortland Standard together and went to Pitt together. He gave me this tip. You basically, if you get a word, you look it up, and then you put it in Google News, and you read every sentence from the different articles that come up with it. So now you know the definition, but then you also know how to use it in context, which is so important. And also, just because you know how to spell a word, you might not know how to pronounce the word. So go to, online and make sure you you play how the word is supposed to be pronounced. But that's all of these things, and kids definitely need to be encouraged to do it because they are able to communicate about themselves better. And then when we talk about wellness, journaling, this is writing, or even just thinking about things in your mind and processing and knowing how you define yourself and your narrative is so important. And wow, as you said, Mr. Utley, we have the athletes, and listen, athletes, we love you. We appreciate all that you do because you also are so important. But the diversity of talents and the diversity of gifts that God gives everyone is that everyone might not be an athlete, everyone might not be a CEO, but one thing everyone can do is read. And we live in a world where we have to read every day. You have to read the stops, the traffic signals, the road instructions. You have to read text messages, emails, whatever, when you're shopping, you read this and that. So read and develop that interest and that love for reading. And I think that's really important.
I mean, I admit to you, early on when we were growing up, and sure they had libraries, and they had a lot of libraries in the schools. And now with the funding cuts and things, a lot of kids don't experience the libraries like we did. But at the same time, something that you said that I thought was very interesting, we should not allow that to be a hindrance to us, because there's still opportunities out there. But it's also up to the parents, it's up to the cousins, the grandparents, or whoever to encourage reading, because we really don't encourage reading. Matter of fact, at this point, it's easier just to Google it or whatever, and it tells you it, and you don't even have to comprehend it. And what happens is they don't comprehend it, and down the road, it's going to come back, and it's going to be a problem. As you said earlier, I have young people I talk to that say they want to be rappers, but they can't write, or they want to be this and they can't read. And one of the things that you said, just very basic, is you got to read, even if you have to figure out how to read the lease, how to fill out the bank form. And one of the things that bothers me and troubles me, I see so many people try to fill out a job application and they can't even fill it out. One, they either can't read the words or they don't know the words. So what would, give me some encouraging things that you think that my audience needs to know?
Well, definitely read, definitely read, and also talk to people, because the better you are as a communicator, the more you are able to transcend this, whatever you want to do. You could go from this level to that level to that level, and then really, live out this upward mobility. And so you said a lot of great things. So one, a lot of people want to be rappers. Vocabulary is so important. If you're like, yes, it's the way you say it and the way you finesse the words, but your vocabulary. And if anybody knows me, they know I rap. I actually am one of the best rappers around, to be honest.
Okay.
And I just got to say that. And then one of the things too is job opportunities. If you're able to express yourself and you're able to use the right words, then sometimes if you get to a person and you could also allow maybe the hiring manager to maybe, gain some interest in you because you know how to express yourself. And by the way, we all know that communication is not just verbal, it's nonverbal. But when we talk about enhancing your verbal, because unless, one of the things I've been saying to people is, and I actually said this to my daughter, Kennedy, I said, even if you don't learn another language and you just are an English speaker for the rest of your life, how great would it be to know as much as you can about the English language? How great would that be to have a vocabulary that every year you're adding 100 new words to your vocabulary? Just words. And we're not even talking about reading, just adding these words to your vocabulary. And so lexicon is so important, which is, making sure you have the word capacity and able to express yourself deeply. Now, when it comes to opportunities, one of the things I'm really looking to do, and thank you for sharing that clip was actually from the University of Pittsburgh. I was one of the outstanding alumni. And also I gave the commencement speech to, I believe, the 2018 graduates from the School of Communications. One of the things, and I'm restructuring my company, it's Kennedy Blue Communications, named after my daughter, Kennedy. She's the namesake. One of the things I really want to do is make sure that I'm in a capacity to hire individuals to work for the company. And as I'm hiring them, I'm making sure that they can write and they can edit and teach them how to do that so they don't have to rack up a crazy price tag, and going to college, which is great. There's nothing wrong going to college. But if I could teach you how to do this and then give you a wage that is great, $70,000 a year, if not more, and you're able to write and edit for clients and understand the media relations landscape, that's 100% on mission with what I want to do. And it just starts with reading. It really starts with reading. And if people want a great book recommendation, I actually just read it. It's Toni Morrison's Jazz. Toni Morrison's Jazz is one of the best books I have ever read. In fact, after reading that book, I said Toni Morrison's my favorite writer. Before, I really like Dave Eggers. He's a nonfiction author, but Toni Morrison, what she did and her artwork was just phenomenal.
So you have this company. So if somebody wanted to reach you, how would they go about reaching you?
Listen, if you want to reach me, because I'm restructuring everything, redeveloping marketing materials. But if you want to reach me directly on my cell phone. The phone number is area code 412-589-3129. Again, 412-589-3129. And also you can reach me via email, Jamar Thrasher @gmail.com. So that's JamarThrsher @gmail.com. And talk to me. One of the main things that I'm focused on right now is helping individuals write their bios, because listen, if you have a business, if you have a whatever you are, you can even have a job, you have to be able to write about yourself. And unfortunately, people wait for other people to write about them, and commonly it's in the obituary and everyone has that bio. But don't wait until you're long gone and you don't have control of your narrative. Let people know who you are, what your mission is, what your vision is. And so that's what I help individuals with. So right now I'm helping people with social media bios, and would love to talk to people about what that looks like. Still playing around with restructuring, like I said, redeveloping some of the business. So right now the price range for that is typically about like $150 or so, but making sure that business owners, when people go to your page and they read the about us, when they read the bio, the company description, that's the second best thing to having a conversation with you and understanding who you are, what your values are. And that's what we do. And also, I really want to redevelop and restructure this whole press coverage and media coverage for businesses and individuals. And so that's what I'm working on right now. And I would love to work with you. 412-589-3129, Jamar Thrasher @gmail.com.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, time be running fast here. You had an opportunity to have and listen to two distinguished gentlemen on the program. We had Reverend Chris Thomas on, who was talking about the new channels that they have, Voice TV, which is a great opportunity for many of you who want to have your own channel because you have messages or things that you want to display to some other people, which is good. And also, I would also say that we have, the brother on here, Brother Thrasher on here at Kennedy Blue Communications. It's about a lot of other things. And because he's about a lot of other things, he wants to help you. So you help him, he helps you. Because one of my big things that I've been saying for some time now is that I'm a believer of entrepreneurship is very important. And entrepreneurship is very important in the Black community. And we have to develop and help our young people get jobs. And then they will be able to help the community. But something that he said earlier, you gotta know how to read, you gotta know how to write, but at the same time, and he even said it, Everybody don't have to go to college. So let's understand that. I do understand he went to college and he went to the University of Pittsburgh. I understand I went to college and I went to the University of Pittsburgh. So I do understand that. But everybody is not built to go to college. But there's no excuse for you not knowing how to read. Because I'm going to leave you with this. Just think of all of our forefathers that died trying to learn how to read. So thank you and have a good day.
Thank you for joining the Richard Utley Show on The Voice 17104. We will be here on The Voice 17104 every first and third Tuesday from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Once again, thanks for viewing. Remember to visit us on Facebook.
Thank you so much.
And we welcome your questions
Great job.